Hey everyone, I'm Jonathan Goss with the Goslings. Give your inner Christian warrior something to really gravitate towards and feed upon with Heavenly Realms, a series of 7 novels about angelic warfare written by me, yours truly. It is masculine, warrior-based fiction that is biblically based, but is extremely gratifying for the warrior in all of you. It is available on Amazon in paperback, ebook, and audiobook. If you like it, leave a review. If you want signed copies, you can always email us at thegoslingsgroup@gmail.com, and I would really love to hear from you. Again, Heavenly Realms by Jonathan Goss, available on Amazon. Check it out. Take up the broken sword of your father
and strike down the darkness.
Amen. Greetings, everyone. I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Nick.
And we are the Goslings, a digital speakeasy of free thinkers, Christian authors, explorers of the esoterica, and general purveyors of buffoonery.
That's right. We have an amazing interview and conversation for you. But if you would first, it really, really helps us if you would take up the broken sword of your finger, strike down that subscribe button. And while you're down there, tinkle that bell.
Yeah, give that bell a gentle caress, or keep your YouTube pin pan strong and smack that bell. Smack it like it owes you money.
That's right. And if you've already done those things, well, first of all, thank you. But also, if you'd hit the like button, that would really, really help us because it shows the algorithm that you like this video and other people who have shared interest will also like it. That would help tremendously.
Yeah, that's right. Leave a comment, share it with your friends, send it to your enemies, do all the things.
That's right.
Who cares?
Who cares? And without further ado, here is this video's conversation and interview. We hope you guys enjoy it.
That's right. Vertical punch.
Your YouTube feed is crap. Stop wasting your time watching bot-boosted shills and self-appointed gurus cloying for your attention. Instead, join the Goslings interview live stream and podcast. The Goslings, a dark-lit digital speakeasy of free thinkers. A super chat of radical truth-seeking wizards who eat trolls for second breakfast. Topics that'll make your mama's hair stand on end. Ideas that'll make your pastor's knees knock. Guests that will illuminate the hidden chambers of your mind. And interviews that strike down the darkness. Welcome to the Goslings.
Okay, so Vicky, you were doing an interview on the Understanding Conspiracy channel recently, which was fantastic, and you talked about Ben Franklin's lightning experiment. And I've always been a fan of Franklin. What's interesting is in his autobiography, he doesn't really mention anything about ever being involved with anything Masonic. There were some groups that he was a part of, but they never touch on anything like occultic. He doesn't in his autobiography.
Right.
But can you, there's something really unique about the lightning experiment. Can you kind of explain what you think he was really trying to do?
Yeah, yep. So I wrote a 4-part article a year or so ago for L.A. Marzulli's PP&S report, which is Prophecy, Politics, and the Supernatural. And you can only get that on the website. It's a paid subscription, like online magazine thing. It's like $20-25 a year or something. So it's a 4-part article I wrote a while ago, so I might not remember some of the exact terms and things. But anyway, these dolmens that everyone's talking about, some people will say, oh, they were grave markers or whatnot. So if you study all of the esoteric stuff, I stumbled upon some amazing articles written by an occultist who said that the dolmens were actually like antiquated operating tables, if you want to say that. And so the stones were protecting the head. So basically, and there's Egyptian drawings of this. And so the key to understanding all of this, one of the most common symbols in Egyptian is the Djed, the D-J-E-D. and it kind of looks like a chess piece. It kind of looks like a pawn with like a flat head, and it stood for like vitality or life or whatever. But basically, it was an ancient battery. It was a conductor of electricity. And when you see old drawings and hieroglyphics of these dolmens, you will often see a jed. And the jed is placed, and then there's like a lightning rod. And what they would do is they would generate ball lightning. Oh, it's just a myth, right? It's fake. What they would do is the lightning would hit the lightning rod. It would conduct through this jet. It would turn into a ball lightning. It would turn into a lesser frequency. You know, if you're struck by lightning, you're going to die. But it would conduct this electricity in such a way through the stone, and the person would be laying beneath the stone under this protective stone with some sort of a halo. So even there, you know, we see the ancient paintings where the gods and the Nephilim would have these halos. And people say, oh, well, that's the sun disk, you know, because they worship the sun. They would wear these protective coverings. And when they were infused with this ball lightning, it would act in much the same way as the starfire and the adrenochrome, et cetera, et cetera. And it would actually prolong their life and preserve their youth. And it had a host of other medical benefits, right? And so when Franklin was around, he did not invent electricity. People already understood electricity. The lightning jar was already a thing before Franklin started doing his experiments. And so when he was out there, he didn't just have a kite and a key. He also had one of these lightning bottles. There was a name to it, but it's been a couple of years since I wrote the article, so I can't remember the name of these. But it's where we get our phrase "lightning in a bottle," if you do the etymology on that phrase. And it's a way of literally capturing that electricity or that energy in this bottle. And he wasn't inventing electricity because electricity was already invented. They already knew what that was at that point. He was attempting to harness it. And we don't know exactly from his own writings, okay, was he an occultist? Was he a Mason? What we don't know. We do know he was part of the Hellfire Club. And so if you go into the study of the Hellfire Club and some of the things that he was doing over in France, underground, et cetera, I have enough evidence in my own mind anyway, that given the esoteric knowledge that he would have had from that secret society, the Hellfire Club, and the fact that he's traipsing around in a thunderstorm with a bottle, leads me to believe that there's many quotes of Franklin where he talks about longevity of life and not reincarnation. There's a quote, and I have it in the article. It's far too complex for me to quote it verbatim, but he basically has a quote that if mankind is the most sophisticated of all of God's creation, why would God destroy it? And it was basically sort of it was an early transhumanist type of a response. He was basically trying to prove the point that immortality could be obtained. So I don't think that he was trying to invent electricity. I think he was trying to invent immortality. He was trying to capture that lightning in a bottle.
I could see that. For anybody who may be uninitiated, that we are initiated, aren't we, Bruce? I'm sorry, I can't every time. What illuminate people as to what the Hellfire Club is?
Well, I don't know too much about it. I just know that back in early American times, it was a type of a society. You know, I had done a bunch of research on it back when Stranger Things came out, because I'm like, what in the world are they trying to trivialize the Hellfire Club for. So I don't really remember offhand. I didn't do tons of research on it, but I was able to confirm that Ben Franklin was a part of that society.
So with lightning in a bottle, with this ball lightning condensed down into a container that could then be repurposed for some sort of adrenochrome-esque longevity or rejuvenative kind of property, is there any theory as to how he would actually employ that? Like, would you have to go into a domain? Is that what it is? And like ritualistically have it be transmuted through that sort of thing to you, or was there another way to absorb it?
So I think that the dolmen was in antiquity, and by the time Franklin came along, I think they were trying other less, public and less complex and less dangerous, because there were people that got electrocuted and died from that. And so I think he was in an experimentation phase, but let it not be mistaken, from the beginning of time, there are people that have harnessed ways of, there have been fountain of youth ideas from the beginning of time that continue to this day.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about the fountain of youth, that's not really some fountain where you drink water. That's a very PG-13 version. These elixirs of the gods were often blood. And if you go into, and Gary Wayne writes about this, the starfire, and I can never pronounce the name of the goddess, but the menstrual blood of Ninkershag, or whatever her name was, it was because it was goddess worship, the whole Queen of Heaven and Inanna, Aphrodite kind of stuff. It wasn't this, nowadays we think of like adrenochrome, and we think of children, or we think of virgins. In antediluvian times, it was the menstrual blood of royal bloodlines, and that was the properties that would, along with ritual black magic, would create these elixirs that would prolong life and youth, and it had other healing properties, et cetera, et cetera. And I believe that stuff is still available today. They have new methods. You're not out under big, henges and stuff anymore. But even if you study the whole history of like Prometheus and like the Promethean fire, what was this fire that was stolen and given to mankind? Was it really that we learned how to make matches and campfires, or was that fire that was stolen from the gods and given to man some sort of an energy that prolonged life and made mankind like the gods? It was probably that Promethean fire, and the legends of lightning, and this whole concept of the lightning bolt symbols in the occult and all of that. It's all related to this Promethean fire and the lightning, which I think has far more to do with immortality than it does with, we learned how to carve wheels and make campfires.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned the menstrual blood thing. That must have a lot of merit in the occult, because and I had to look it up to be sure, but it reminded me of the only Anne Rice novel I've ever read, Memnoch the Devil. And in Memnoch the Devil, it's narrated by Lestat, and then at the end, he's so drained or beaten or whatever that the character that he's chasing after, this girl named Dora, who is a devout Christian, apparently I think she's like the daughter of a drug lord, and I can't remember if she has some sort of mystical lineage to her or not, or whatever it is, but that is, like, without being too graphic, that is how he regains his rejuvenative power in the end.
Mm-hmm.
And so
yes
so somebody knows about it, because Anne Rice knew about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and wittingly or unwittingly, so does Stephanie Myers. You look at you look at something as silly as the Twilight series, right?
Mhm.
And you had all these moms who were just as excited about it as the little girls. And
Uh-huh.
I don't know if they just missed it or they were so under the spell of Edward Cullen they didn't care. But if you go towards the very end of that book, and it's I can't remember if it's portrayed in the movie or not, but when Bella is giving birth to the demigod, the half vampire, the half human, she can't do a normal delivery, and he basically eats the child out of the womb.
Mhm.
He eats the passageway out. And so here again we have this antediluvian concept of the star fire. The
Mhm.
and what happens after she gives birth? um she becomes this vampire. She becomes immortal,
Mhm.
after the flow of blood. And so, you know
That's what
Hollywood
your
has done it.
14-year-old girls are reading, by the way.
Not
That
mine.
There
that's
you go.
right.
Not mine.
Not
Yeah,
his. Yeah.
yeah, that is. And so at the end of this love story, they
Mhm.
all walk away into the woods glittery and immortal. But the fact of the matter is, it was through the drinking of the you
Hmm.
know
Yeah, the menstrual
uh
blood placenta kind of aspect of, yeah.
exactly.
Boy,
Yep. And so, and
that's
there
my
you
favorite chapter in the no,
yeah.
I'm kidding.
Yeah. So you've always got these elements of blood and death and children, and the
Mhm.
birth, the womb. You've got the womb there, which is another huge symbol of all of this. And then what's the result of this bloody womb and this drinking of the blood? Immortality.
Mhm.
It's the starfire. It's the big secret that immortality comes through the shedding of blood. And I mean, it even says in the scripture that the life is in the blood. and
Yeah.
and you've got the shedding of blood. That what does the shedding of Christ's blood do for us? Gives us eternal life. It's all about immortality.
Well, and as medical science progresses, they're already looking at harvesting stem cells from not just embryos, but from placenta,
Yeah.
as well, to do their research. So as they advance more and
Mhm.
more, it would not surprise me to
Mhm.
see medicines being advertised for rejuvenation, maybe prolonging of life, right? There's going to be more research into all of this. So my question to you is, at what point does acceptable medicine become really pharmakia? At what point is it pharmakia and forbidden?
In a way,
Ab-
it already is. I can't remember which Hollywood couple it was, but there was one Hollywood like new dad who had talked about, like, after they had their kid, the doctors, of course, because it's Hollywood, made the placenta into a soup for them to eat.
Yeah.
so disgusting. Well, and
Right?
here's what,
Yeah.
and oh, you can't write this stuff. Well, and
No, you can't.
here's what's interesting. They say that the whole Roman civilization, which we built and patterned America after,
Mhm.
was basically destroyed through vanity and licentiousness. So all of the vats that they had their alcohol and their wine in were made of lead, and all of the makeup that the women wore was lead-based, like paint. And so they basically all died of lead poisoning because they were drinking and all the seduction
Mhm.
of the makeup and all that. And so when you look at stuff, it's not just the medicine that can be pharmakia. One of the things that surprised me is, all these people that are talking now about, oh, I can't have gluten. It's not just stuff they can't eat. The gluten is in shampoo and deodorant and face creams and all this stuff. And so you don't have
Mhm.
to just ingest it. If it's rubbed into the skin, it can hit the bloodstream, et cetera, et cetera. So
Like aluminum in your deodorant. That's,
nobody's,
you know,
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
So I don't know if this is some sort of like Mandela effect or something, you guys, but I remember back around 1995, and the Christian community was up in arms because they started putting collagen in a whole bunch of bath and beauty products, in shampoo, in like moisturizers, and they were touting that the face creams with collagen in it was reversing aging and taking away wrinkles, and women could look 20 years younger and all this stuff. And it was found out that the collagen was taken from stem cells in the umbilical cords of basically aborted babies.
Mhm.
And so the Christian community was banning everything that had collagen in it, and they were looking at the labels and whatever. And what I tend to think is that for the sake of the consumers, they probably started taking collagen off of the ingredient labels. They probably started calling it something else. But I don't believe for 2 seconds, because I wasn't born yesterday, that aborted fetal tissue isn't in almost everything.
Yeah.
In our shampoos, our facial stuff are in, we know from the, is it HEC 293? I always say HEC 296, but I think it's HEC 293. It's the human embryonic kidney. This is in all sorts of, they just label it natural flavors on foods. Natural flavors can sometimes mean HEC 293, which means there's human embryonic kidney cells from aborted babies in that food. Now, that doesn't mean we're cannibalizing and we're eating babies. This is where a lot of people get it wrong. What the cells do is they flip on and off taste receptors in our tongue. And so something that might not taste delicious naturally, it's almost like instead of sugar flavoring, they flip things on that affect your brain so that you have a sense that something tastes better than it is. And so it's not that they're chopping up a baby and sticking it in a burger. It's just, that they have these cells.
Mhm.
And what's scary about that is if you've got cells, if you're ingesting DNA, there's so many different possibilities for why this is nefarious, other than just the fact that you're ingesting it. And so the fact of the matter is, at what point is this going to become pharmakia? My answer to that would be 20 years ago.
Yeah. Well, even 10 years ago, Sandra Bullock was on Ellen or Oprah or somebody talking about how like this wonderful face cream that she was wearing was literally made from the foreskins of babies.
Yeah, I remember that.
So
Yeah.
that's how outlandish, that's how brazen they are now. So yeah, you're probably right. It's probably been there for at least 20, 30 years.
So what's our response? I mean,
sure.
most people just didn't know it.
The Amish.
But now we
the response
know,
is
like,
just to be Amish.
What is the response though as Christians? Is it to stop buying stuff that might have this in it, to research and learn what does and doesn't have it? Like, where do you, at what point are you guilty?
I know. And I talk about this a lot because it's kind of getting to the point where unless you want to live in a field, buck naked and eat grass and drink rainwater, I mean,
Keep
it's
talking.
like,
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good so far. Keep going.
Yeah.
No cell phone. Sounds good.
Yeah. No cell phones. Yeah.
No cell phone. No cell phone. And it's interesting because it's like, we know from the Amish and movies like The Village, it doesn't work because as long as you've got fallen man, there's always gonna, the enemy's within, right? And so, but I just think about how we were initially created to live in an agrarian society. We had our own little plot of land and our own home. And, I used to always think, oh man, how did people live back then? They would have been freezing. They would have, how would they have kept warm? But if you actually study like the thermodynamics of like underground temperature, these people that were living in caves and stuff, it was perfectly cool in the summer. And it was, it was warm there in the winter. Like freezing and being hot only became a problem when we started building all these exterior buildings where we couldn't keep the walls hot and cold, and this whole idea that the Watchers came down and gave us all of this knowledge, what they did is they took us out of nature and put us in these cities, in these prisons, with all of like the buildings that were difficult to insulate and the crowding and I just read something recently. It was so fascinating. It wasn't a Christian article. And it was a psychological article that the way the brain is designed, like the capacity that we have for socialization is capped out at about 250 people. Like,
Yeah,
we
it's
should
called
know.
Dunbar's number. You only have
Is that what that is? Okay.
Dunbar's number says I think it's Dunbar's number. You only
Okay.
have room in your head for a certain amount of faces, which
Yes.
is a reason why military groups always hover around the same numbers.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so like Roman
Nice.
centuries, maniples, 80, 160 guys,
Gotcha. Platoon.
cohorts, 480, platoons. Yeah, to your
Yes.
point. Yeah.
Interesting.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's so now you look at that, you stick us in these cities.
Yeah.
We see more than 250 people a day.
Mhm.
Social media, you're friends with all these people you've never met, and you're trying
I'm
to
not.
keep up with all of them, and you're trying to remember their names and their birthdays. And oh my goodness, if you're not on Facebook, you're not going to remember everyone's birthday.
Mhm.
And so, then you get all these texts like, I feel bad you forgot my birthday. What?
Right.
And so so we're being inundated. And so I guess my initial answer is, how do you turn it all back? How do you stop the freight train at this point? Now, I know that we can move on land and garden and drink raw milk and own our own cow, but I know that there's people that can afford to do that. But the majority of people can't move rural and start up a whole huge complicated homestead, and
Mhm.
and it's a massively complex learning curve.
Mhm.
And not everyone can do that. I mean, I just hear my friends talk about, well, my tomato plant failed this year because I didn't do this and I didn't do that. And I'm like, well, that's just one plant. And all of a sudden
Yeah.
you're supposed to be making your own soap and your own shampoo and your own,
Yeah.
I mean,
It's a
I don't
lot.
know how to turn it. It is. It's overwhelming. And so, like, there are certain things that I will boycott. Like, there's certain places I won't go anymore. It's a very limited number, because I think for all the places that I do go, I don't know what they're up to. I don't know who's running the show. I don't know what their belief system is. And, every June, when it is a requirement of all of the companies to go woke, you understand everybody's in this.
Mhm.
So, and even your own church half the time is in it. So,
Oh my gosh, tell me about it. Yeah.
so how do you live in the world and amongst the world? How, I guess the question is, what does it mean to depart Babylon in our generation? Like,
Yeah.
what does that mean? And it might mean different things for different people. Some people are going to take it to more of an extreme than other people. Some people have more freedom. If you're married with 6 kids and living on a small income, and you have 2 college loans and a car loan, you don't have as many options as someone who's single and makes 6 figures a year. So not everyone has the luxury. Not everyone out there who's a single mom because their husband died can do all this.
Yeah.
Plant the gardens and live on their own land and homeschool all the kids. It's not an option for everybody. So it's a really hard question to answer. And, my family's been trying to answer that question for the last 10 years. And we have been able to make a lot of sweeping adjustments. But there's a point too where you just get too old, where you don't have the energy to be up on some rural property chainsawing down, 400-pound trees when a rainstorm knocks it down and blocks your road. I mean, there's only so much we can do.
Yeah. I've had a couple friends who have they're probably, I think, 8 years younger than me, and they tried the homesteading thing. And I think, Nick, you've talked about it before too.
Yep.
Like, you're just sitting there watching. You're like, oh
Yep.
boy, like, because they're so like self-righteous about it.
Yeah.
And they get out
Homeschool
there
families.
and they're gonna homeschool and they're gonna raise all their own crops and have all these farm animals and everything. It's like
5
all right,
years
man.
in,
Yeah.
they're
Oh,
miserable and they're ready to sell.
5 months in, all the crops aren't working. There's leaks everywhere. It's just like, dude, it takes a lot of work and a lot of time. And if you
Yep.
don't know what you're doing, if you weren't raised that way, And it's good to hear you say that, by the way, about like, different people can respond in different ways, because what's good for me is not good for my brother, maybe. And so like for some people, I think exiting Babylon is just a purely internal spiritual thing of like, okay, I'm not going to watch these shows. I'm not going to go to these places, or at least not during this month. I'm or at least if I have to, I'm not going to celebrate it, and be enjoyed or enjoy the experience, but yeah, like for a lot of people, like you may have to go to Target, like
You might not have a choice.
yeah, like
Well, yeah, you can't leave Babylon unless you can identify what Babylon is.
yeah,
So a lot of it is
Right.
awareness of
Right.
what does that mean? What does Babylon look like now?
yeah,
What are we supposed to avoid?
yeah,
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
could be
Yeah.
we might get surprised because everywhere we look, we end up seeing signs of it. We're like, well,
yeah.
Yeah.
what do I do?
yeah.
Like you said, I can't live in the field, eat grass, and drink rainwater.
Mm-hmm. Are you looking to actualize your inner Leonidas? Are you looking to find something for the Spartan in your life? Look no farther than Jardani Jovanovic. Jardani Jovanovic hair and skincare products made by real men for real men. Or as I like to say, be as sexy as you are deadly. Give 007 a run for his money. Awaken your inner John Wick with Jardani Jovanovic. Hair and skincare products.
Water.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Well, and there is such a disparaging sort of like disconnect between what we all think is ideal and what we should be doing, and then what we're actually doing, even if we're capable of doing more. So I always joke with my friends who are like, the food is genetically modified, it's poison, and then they're slugging back Red Bulls, and it's like, well,
Yeah,
if
right.
you know that,
Yeah.
and so, and there's a lot of stuff I know this is not good for me. This is absolutely the worst thing I can be putting in my mouth right now, past the Twinkies,
Right. Yeah. It's either that or I go crazy,
Well, Jesus said,
I
it's
know.
not what goes into a man's mouth that makes him unclean. It's what comes out of his heart. That's what
Yeah,
corrupts a man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Well, we have probably another hour. I think it's 5 o'clock. We could probably go till about 6 o'clock. I'd like to spend man, I know this has been like the focus of why we were all gathered here today, but we've had such a great time like talking about so much other stuff, Vicky. You think we could take like half an hour and talk about the Black Awakening, then take half an hour and talk about altars in the church?
Sure.
All right, cool.
Yep.
I want to give a shout out to American Cars, one of our patrons. He hooked me up with a copy of Russ Disdar's The Black Awakening. Major shout out to my buddy American Cars for hooking me up with this, because like you cannot find these things anywhere. So like if anybody wants to like join the Patreon and then sell me their like extremely hard to find rare out of print books, like dude, I'm a total sucker for it. But truly, like I think you can maybe find this in PDF, but truly the only place I could find online that had a copy of this for sale was in Sweden. It was in a Swedish library, and they would
Wow.
not ship overseas. Like I
Wow.
would have
Yeah.
had to have this shipped to Adam Burl and then pay him to ship it to me. And even then,
Yeah.
like the book itself would have cost like $500.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So and
Yeah.
why is this book so hard to find, and why is this important?
Okay, so shortly after Russ died, all of a sudden the book was no longer available. And you could find copies on Amazon for like 500. I've seen it up to 900. And the official story we got, which I really didn't believe at first, but it's the only story I'm getting, is that the publishing house, which is Lulu Publishing, it's a vanity press, which means they'll publish anything if it makes them money. But supposedly they said, we're no longer supporting the content of this book. We're not printing it anymore, which I don't know if it's true or not. It's the story I'm hearing. It doesn't make sense to me, but whatever. There was a PDF version available for a brief period of time, but it was unauthorized. And when the estate found out, they put the kibosh on that, because none of the money for the sales was going to the actual estate. It was, it was not done correctly, but that's been rectified within actually the last month or two. So There's no
Okay.
PDF available either. So it is a rare find, and every once in a while, because folks at Through the Black are always scouring the web for copies, and every once in a while we'll find one on Aid Books or something, and we'll snatch it up as quickly as we can, so that when people ask
Yeah.
for it, we've got some copies. But if you've got it, you're an extremely lucky person, because they're out of print. So
Yeah.
and the fact that it happened so quickly after Russ died, that's what made a lot of us wonder, like,
Mm.
was that just a coincidence? But the sad fact is, if you don't have a copy of it, find someone who does, and at least borrow it and read it. It's about the super soldiers and the planned agenda, the Black Awakening, the awakening of the programmed super soldiers.
So the book was, if I'm looking at it correctly, the book was published in 2009, but it didn't get pulled from Lulu Publishing until after Russ's death. Is that correct?
2021, 2022, something like that. Yep.
Oh, that's so
Yeah.
weird. So I don't know if they've thought about it, but I mean, we self-publish through Amazon KDP.
Yeah.
It seems like it would become, especially where we're at now with what all is going on with Israel and Palestine, and the Palestinians, and now Syria, and and all this other stuff that's happening. It seems like, man, I wish that estate would go through Amazon KDP and maybe republish this book just as a ministry for more people to get their hands on.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's such an interesting book, because it's prophetic, but it's also written in this almost like fictional, near future, first person kind of recounting kind of narrative. It's got a very interesting presentation to it that is very different than everything else. What inspired, do you know what inspired Russ to write this book, especially at the time that he wrote it, and why he chose to present it in the format that he did?
Yeah. So Russ worked with the City of Canton Police Department, and he trained officers in occult crime. Now, what a lot of police stations have an occult crime unit. They don't talk about it. Smaller places don't have it, but there are a lot of crimes that we hear about in the news that they know it's an occult crime, but that part is not presented to the public because they don't want another satanic panic, right?
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
there's certain things that they look for that will set a crime apart from like a brutal murder. They'll know this is an occult crime. So Russ was doing some training with that. He was helping with cold cases, et cetera, et cetera. So he, through the people that he met and with the SRA survivors that he talked to and things like that, he gleaned a lot of information about this soldier program. Back in 2009, if you had blown the whistle on that, you probably would have, had to have gone into hiding. So I think that the reason why it is presented in a fictionalized, this present darkness kind of a feel is because you can say anything if it's a comic book or it's fiction. If it's presented as a story, then they kind of wink at it. But if he had written it like, this is going on, the satanic panic people would have come out of the woodwork again. They don't want people thinking that this is really going on, and that there are cells of thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people. I mean, it's really unbelievable that there are people with latent programming, and that when they are all collectively flipped on at the same time, you are going to have mass chaos, and you're going to have people who have been programmed to kill and to shoot on sight, and you're going to have suicide shooters, and all of the programming and the training that is latent in them is all going to be switched on at the same time, which is the point of the book. and that's the Black Awakening, when all of these super soldiers are awakened and carry out their programming.
I mean, I just thought it was about Obama's first term, so I was really disappointed. No, I'm totally just. I'm sorry, low hanging fruit joke. So okay, but here's the fascinating thing about the Black Awakening. He writes this book in 2009, 4 years before Sandy Hook. You know, years before Vegas, years before a decade, almost a decade before Vegas, and then probably a full decade before Parkland, in Florida.
Yeah.
You know, so like, and over probably what, close to 13, 14 years before the Covenant shooting here in Nashville. So are we seeing, through these mass shooters, are we seeing like just the cracks, the glimmers into what he was kind of predicting with this sort of thing?
Yeah. So I'm not one of these people that every single time a crime happens, oh, they're a program multiple, you know, but there have been several things in the news lately, and not even just like the big ones like Sandy Hook, but there are crimes that are occurring out there where it very much looks like a program multiple, who either the programming is breaking, you know, there's a glitch in the programming, or maybe they're testing it out, or whatnot. There was a really weird story. I think it took place in England several years ago, and it was two twin sisters, and they might have been from Scandinavia or something, I don't know, but they ran into traffic and got hit by trucks and got up and kept running, and they were hit by the trucks and the cars multiple times, and they kept running, and
Wow.
the cop would like pick them up, and then they would have enough strength left to like beat the cops off, and then they'd run. And it was the weirdest thing. There's a documentary online somewhere about it, and Tom and I did a show on it once on one of the Through the Black episodes, and I think they both survived, but then one of them in the institution ended up killing somebody, and maybe, I don't remember the details, but when you see stuff like that, you're getting hit by a car multiple times, you know, you're running away from cops with a broken leg, all this kind of stuff. You know, that's kind of like in 8th grade health class when they used to talk about people on LSD who had like this superhuman strength, you know.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. And so when you see stuff like that, you're like, something, you know, and it's kind of funny how every single oddity that happens now gets chalked off to mental illness. And it's like, I would think that if you were mentally ill, you would have less capacity to handle being hit by a truck 3 times, you know, not more. So even the recent thing on social media with the girl in the airplane, that thing's not real,
Yeah.
and then she or someone who looked like her had to you know, backpedal a few weeks later and say, you know, I am mentally ill. So like everybody that's sort of any glitch in the matrix now has to be explained away by mental illness, and no one wants to ask the questions as to whether or not maybe something a little more strange is going on. Then all of a sudden in 10 years, half the population is mentally ill. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, first of all, shout out to Tiffany Gomas, my future ex-wife. Just based enough to where I don't have to explain a bunch of things, and just ratchet enough to where I don't have to really try. She's perfect is what I'm saying. And that second part, that's those videos where she came out afterwards, I don't think that was her. I'm like, yeah, I mean,
a lot of
maybe
people don't.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, she could be, you know, to be perfectly like forthright and honest and rational. Like, yeah, dude, it could be her. But there's a part of my brain that's like, I don't know. I'm a dude who's into chicks, so I know when I see one girl and when I see a different girl. I don't buy it. You know, I don't totally buy it. But it was so bizarre. I mean, it's just one of those things that just comes out of nowhere. And it's so bizarre. And like you say, everybody just attributes it to, mental health. Mental health becomes a get out of jail free card, becomes your pass, for all sorts of behavior, whether it's innocuous and just weird, or whether it's psychotic and malevolent and destructive, and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and we don't, we've talked about it before about how churches are bad about that, how
Mhm.
like they'll dismiss something as being needing a psychiatrist to write a prescription and a psychologist to shrink them on the couch, but really what they probably need is an exorcist,
Mhm.
and
Deliverance ministry.
yeah, and
Mhm.
man,
It's the fallback. It's the last choice. It's the last thing we're going to try.
yeah, and it's so bizarre that like more normies are not willing to entertain this kind of, esoteric subject matter, because you have Babylon working, you have like government involvement with the occult, and then you have MK Ultra. Like, we know MK Ultra is real now.
Yeah.
It's not like
Yeah.
it's not a fringe conspiracy theory anymore. So
Yeah.
like, dude, at what point is the evidence there, enough to be able to believe that, like, yeah, there probably are some like, super soldiers who are just waiting. I mean, it was a plot point in Fringe, for crying out loud,
Right. Right. Well, and it's interesting too, this phenomenon of apophenia, which is this concept where people take things that are completely unrelated and they correlate them. And apophenia is actually labeled as the beginning stage of schizophrenia. But here's where it's getting completely out of hand. Dictionaries, which are supposed to be objective, as a sample of what apophenia looks like, they say, well, like conspiracy theorists who say that this and this, it relates to each other when they have nothing to do with each other, and what they're doing is they're setting the groundwork, as they always have, for if you're going to take two things in the news and you're going to start prophecy watching with it, and you're going to be like, hey, this sounds like Revelation, and hey, that transhumanism stuff really makes sense with this neural lace stuff. And if you're going to be crazy enough to start correlating things that have no correlation, you are in the beginning phases of schizophrenia. So we're going to have to put you under surveillance. We're going to maybe give you some psychotropic sweet tarts, we'll start getting you on the list, right? And so they're really setting the groundwork. And I just did an 1.5-hour presentation for an upcoming Skywatch virtual conference on this whole topic. And what I do is I do a compare and contrast of the opening paragraph of H.P. Lovecraft's Call of Cthulhu, where he talks about how we are supposed to live on this placid island of ignorance.
Yep.
We're in the midst of a huge black sea of nothingness. But when the sciences, which have all strained in their own directions, when those sciences start coming back together cohesively as a whole, and we start recorrelating the contents of all of these things that we thought were once unrelated, Lovecraft says that we will either go insane, we'll go mad, or we will just give in to this placid, we'll just give into and basically buy into the program, take the blue pill, whatever you want to say. So what I think is really ironic, fascinating, hypocritical about that is that we as human beings, when we start through discernment or through brain, through the Holy Spirit, when we start to recorrelate the contents of our universe that really do fit together, we are going to be thrown away into padded rooms. We're going to be labeled mentally ill. We're going to be psyched up on meds. But if you go to the book of Daniel, the guy that gets to rule the world because people are going to think he's the Messiah is going to be the guy that understands dark sayings. So he's going to be able to correlate all of the contents and the disassociated contents of the universe, and he's going to look like a genius.
Yeah.
But if we do it, we're schizophrenic. And so this is the this is the dichotomy of our planet right now, that it's okay if the contents of the universe start getting recorrelated, if the people we assign to correlate them are the ones making the connections.
That's right.
But if you step out of line, you little deplorable eater, and you start correlating them ahead of us, you're in trouble.
You're in trouble.
Right?
Dude, H.P. Lovecraft, right after Stephen Pressfield, H.P. Lovecraft is my favorite author, and he has been since I was 17. Because of Metallica, actually, because I've always been a fan of Metallica, and now I look back differently on it. But Lovecraft I think he was a prophet. I think he was tapping into things that he didn't understand. And you want to talk about someone who was tortured with, an awful childhood and a degraded life, died early, well before his time. Much like Nikola Tesla, just a visionary tapping into things that he probably should not have been tapping into, and died penniless and unrenowned for it. I think, and it's so dark and nihilistic that, like, those are your two options. You either take the blue pill, or you do what half the characters in Lovecraft's stories do, which is stare into the horrors of the cosmos and go mad as a result.
Exactly. Well, and Lovecraft, if you read any of his biographers, they talk about the dream renderings of Lovecraft, and that much of his stories, he would fill in the gaps, but he would astral project at night, willingly or unwillingly, I don't know. But
he would be taken by the night gaunts. He used to talk about that, these like winged amorphous, almost skeletal, like fallen angels, basically. Like they would just he would be carried by these night gaunts. He was
so much like the prophets of the Bible, who sometimes they were writing things that they did not understand, and things that weren't explained to them, and things that would happen after their death. And so much like the prophets of the Bible, who didn't always understand necessarily what they were dictating, Lovecraft would come back and he would write down these dream renderings. He'd fill in the blanks, where they were blanks, but he was doing the same thing as the biblical writers, but he was just writing someone else's gospel. And when you read Lovecraft, and I wouldn't suggest everyone doing that, but if you do the kind of research that I do, there's a lot to figure out when you read the gospel and the Bible of the other side. And a lot of things do come into crystal clarity. And Lovecraft, whether he knew it or not, had a perfect understanding of the unveiling of the new golden age.
Dreams of Unknown Kadath was one of his stories, if I remember correctly. And every one of his stories has just first of all, no one had written anything like that, but every one of his stories has this potency to it. Like, it's just got the ring of truth to it. Like someone's just struck the middle C of something real, and it's always so bizarre. Now, they're fantastical and they're weird, and there's some stuff that I'm sure there's a lot, that's not true, but Lovecraft is a singular entity. On the same level as Jack Parsons, Aleister Crowley, all of these like luminaries. And you mentioned that he was an unwitting prophet of, did you call it the Golden Age? Is that right?
The unveiling of the Golden Age.
The unveiling of the new Golden Age. The new world order.
Talk about that a little bit. I actually haven't heard that put that way before.
Well, so I don't know if this kind of applies, but what's interesting is, so Cthulhu, for those who might not know it, Cthulhu is like a humanoid type creature that rises from the midst of the sea, but he has like an octopus or a squid kind of a head, and hard as marble, and
corpulent body of a dragon. Sometimes he's like 80 stories tall, like Godzilla. Sometimes he's like 30 feet tall. He's like translucent also, like they ram him with a ship and he like bursts like a bubble, but he's got like dragon wings, and like it's just I'll never forget the doors to his temple. He's the priest of Riley. And Riley, and the doors to his temple are first of all, it's all non-Euclidean architecture, and then
Cyclopean architecture.
Yes, and the doors to his temple are like an acre, like the side they're like acre platforms.
Wow,
dude, it's so bizarre. Yeah. But
Yep.
anyways,
And
yeah.
it and the Cyclopedian sunken city of R'lyeh is green. It's tinted green, which is
Soapstone.
astral language.
Oh,
Yep. You
really?
go into Wizard of Oz, the Emerald City. You got, that the astral realm of the Emerald City, where you don't get to the Emerald City until you fall asleep in the opioids and all that stuff. But
Mhm.
Didn't Wizard of
uh,
Oz come first though, before H.P.
No.
Lovecraft's writing?
Well, when was Wizard of Oz
Baum
written?
Baum was Frank Baum. I mean, yeah, I mean, he was a while ago, and his book series, it was 12 books long. There were 12 books in that series. So if you really read it, it's pretty amazing. I don't know if Baum and Lovecraft were contemporaries or not, and I don't want to look it up on my phone now, so I have everybody staring at my forehead. But
Yeah, no, it's all
uh,
right. He did predate, yeah,
Right,
1856 to 1919. But Wizard of Oz was
Lovecraft.
no Baum.
Oh, Baum. Okay.
But Wizard of Oz was written in 1900, so that would have been right before or
Ooh.
around the time that Lovecraft was writing. Because Lovecraft wrote in
Okay.
the early 20th century, if I remember correctly.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, and Baum too. Baum was a theosophist and a astral projector. He and his wife and mother-in-law would do seances and all that. He's a character too. But interesting thing about Cthulhu is in the D&D realm, Cthulhu could classify as an illithid, which is a humanoid with an octopus head. And if you read into the lore of the illithids, it is really fascinating. They are a hive mind society. All of the illithids are one, and they worship the elder brain. And the elder brain is a compilation of every brain of every illithid who passed away prior. And so these illithids, now you're getting into the hive mind, now you're getting into the Borg collective, and you're getting into the transhuman stuff and all that stuff. So it's all connected now.
they did that on
I
Doctor
don't
Who.
know that.
They did the same. They
Did
did
they?
like that very thing on Doctor Who.
Really?
Yeah, they had the squid people who I think they all use like orbs to communicate, but they all like were a collective hive mind. Yeah.
Yep, that's the illithids. It's the and where they're trying to get that into the collective conscience is, even though it's not portrayed accurately, another name, a synonym for the illithids, are the mind flayers. So you get this now in Stranger Things. And Stranger Things and Slumberland and Little Nemo and the Adventures of Slumberland, they all have a mind flayer as well. They call it a Nightmare King, or that is a giant black squid, or it's like an arachnid looking thing. So you're getting like the legs or the tentacles. So it's not, it's like a caricature, because a true illithid, the tentacles are just the head. It's, there's a body on it too. But Slumberland and Little Nemo in Adventures in Slumberland, which is the Japanese anime version, which came first, that is all a nautical theme, which ties in with Cthulhu, where it's this sunken city. It's the Nightmare King. And you've got this it's interesting to me that the character's name in those movies are Nemo. That's Latin for nobody. So now you've got the whole deplorable theme again, how we are just these little nobodies, and this whole dimensional world is going on. And all of the ones that are nautical themed, you think about how the Bible refers to the sea as chaos, which is what God is at war with, it, the enemy of God. And so you've got all these nautical themes with Cthulhu and the Nightmare King and Slumberland and all of that stuff.
Is there when I think of Russ Dizdar career in the helping train police departments, or being an advisor to police departments with their occult divisions, it almost seems like there's a correlation. I don't know, I could never prove this, but it seems like he might be the inspiration behind Rustin Cole from season 1 of True Detective, who, because season 1 of True Detective is phenomenal. It's arguably like the greatest season of TV ever made, and it's about Matthew McConaughey, and him and Woody Harrelson. They play a couple of detectives who are trying to stop this occult child and women sacrificing kind of like underground Bohemian Grove-esque group in Louisiana, and they're all tied to like these major politicians, but it's all occult ritual sacrifice. And and Matthew McConaughey's character Rustin Cole is kind of the guru of all of the occult stuff. And listening to you talk and listening to when that show came out and listening to like, oh yeah, Black Awakening was written in 2009, season 1 of True Detective came out in like 2014, you know. And
you're connecting dots. I think you might be schizophrenic.
I might be.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Apothenia. There it is. Yeah. I'll get there eventually. You know, I'm guilty of it. I just can't say it. You know, I'm like Harrison Ford talking to George Lucas. You can write this crap all day, George, but you can't say it. You know, when do I get to do another Indiana Jones movie? You know, So okay, so much like H.P. Lovecraft, Russ Dizdar talking about things that are very prescient. Do you think that like maybe he was tapping into something that even he didn't fully understand, or did he really have the weight of all this fully on his shoulders?
You're talking about Russ?
Yes, Russ Dizdar.
Yeah. Oh boy. You know, I mean, I think Russ knew what he was doing and what he was talking about, and he was getting this is the hard thing about that line of work. And I got to be careful how I say this, because I have friends who are SRA survivors who are wonderful, godly, some of the best people I know, right?
Yeah.
But depending on where someone is in their healing process and how aware they are of all the programming and all the altars, and some of them who are still programmed, who have front-facing personalities that are friendly or who are Christian, you don't necessarily know if all of the information you're getting from them is accurate or if they're red herrings. And so there's a degree where we always have to be wondering if the information that we got is right or not, you know. And another thing too is a lot, I don't know if Russ did this for 30 years or 40 years or something like that. And the old school mind control programs and the programming and whatnot, I think they're into the 4th generation now, if not the 5th, of these super soldiers. And with technology and the militarization of things, the things that used to be 100% a fact 40 years ago are not necessarily a fact now. And so sometimes Russ would be looking for certain evidences of SRA and would deem that this is not an SRA case because he was looking for these 40-year-old markers, and some of those things are no longer done anymore. So it's one of those things where they're ever changing their operation. You know, they're not doing the same things that they were doing 40 years ago. So it's one of those things where if you talked to all the people that did the kind of stuff that Russ did, there'd be disagreement among them as to what are we looking for and what are the markers and how do we resolve this, or what's the method of healing and deliverance and whatnot. So I think we have figured out a lot of stuff. And I think that some of the church is way more aware of this stuff than they've ever been before, or at least this information is available to the church like it's never been before. But I still think that we have maybe only uncovered the tip of the iceberg as to what these clowns have been up to since the beginning of time.
Did you know that, and I only found out about this probably like a month or so ago, American Vindicta, the YouTube channel, He's actually been, and he kind of travels in the same circles that we do. He's a great guy. But he's been reading the Black Awakening, like on
Okay.
his channel. And one of the questions I was going to ask you, Vicky, is like, how do you get the word out about this book? Like, how do you warn people about it, and what's the value of warning people about it, as far as like how to prepare or what to watch for?
The reason why this is such a hard question is the church's head is so far up its own butt that you even if you presented it to them in a way that they absolutely couldn't argue, because of the cognitive dissonance and because of bad teaching over the course of the last 50 years, like Christians can never get hurt by the devil, and we can't be possessed, and we can't be, any weapon formed against us won't prosper, which means we don't ever have to watch our back. We don't have to be sober. We don't have to be vigilant. We don't have to pray. Jesus is just up there like a Star Wars 1980s Ronald Reagan defense shield that, he'll do all the work for us, and we just sit down here and enjoy our little lives, and he'll shoot off all the missiles for us.
He's our Iron Dome. Come on, baby.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. And so I don't know a lot of Christians, and especially you start talking to Christian women who have young babies, and they don't want to hear about this stuff. They don't like to talk about your whole entire paradigm being shattered when you realize that the evil in this world wasn't just confined to World War II or to Mussolini, that this level of evil is still at play every single day and playing out right under our noses. And even the Christians that are involved in the ministry and that have some of the tools and know what to expect experience tremendous amounts of warfare, and lives can fall apart and everything if there's missteps. And so I really don't know that getting the message out is really going to accomplish anything, because the message is out and it's rejected by a lot of the people that hear it. And I mean, all you have to do is Google Russ Dizdar and see the smear campaigns against him that talk about how he's a troll and a shill and he's an occultist and he's really just a reprogrammer and all that. And so it really doesn't, the information is out there. And so what the real problem is how do we remove the veil from the church's eyes to realize that you might not think that this has anything to do with you. It's not your kids, and but the fact of the matter is, as this progresses, as their agenda progresses, if what Russ writes in the Black Awakening is true, at some point it will be your family and it will be your kids. Now, your kids might not be kidnapped and used in a satanic ritual, but what I'm saying is once they unleash the power that they are hoping to unleash, and their king and their antichrist or their messiah or whatever you want to call it, once he is unleashed, it's going to be your problem. And this is the part that I don't understand. We all as Christians, we read Revelation. We read about a third of the planet dying in one fell swoop. And we read about you're not going to be able to buy or sell or anything like that. And everyone believes it and everybody talks about it. But then when you start putting actual nuts and bolts to that, like, hey, this is something technologically or militaristically or medically that could be unleashed on planet Earth that actually could kill a third of the planet. And then you're crazy, you're a conspiracy theorist, you're a Debbie Downer. And so what I don't understand is, if you believe that a third of the planet is going to drop like flies in a plague, if you believe that, then why is it so hard for you to believe that there's going to be infrastructure in place to accomplish that? And when we talk about the infrastructure, why is that so hard to believe? That's the part that just blows my mind. Like, you just think you're going to wake up one day and a third of the planet's going to be dead. Like
Right.
no plan was put in place. There was no infrastructure. It just
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
Well, people don't think long enough about those kinds of things, and they don't think about how, like, the government guaranteed someone got paid with your tax dollars to, like, work up a plan on that, and they're probably about 5 steps ahead of you, as far as
Yeah.
what we
Yeah.
think we can do, especially with these things where they can.
You talk about infrastructure.
Yeah, I mean, this is their greatest tool of infrastructure, and
Currently.
and that's the thing, like, everybody, no one is, like, suspicious when the iPhone came out and it was every commercial, every ad, every billboard, like every movie. And it's like, guys, like, Mockingbird Media, do you guys not, like, wonder why something is being promoted the way it is? Like, maybe it's
Yes.
because it's being used, ding dongs, and then 10 years
Yeah.
later we all find out, oh yeah, it is just a giant listening, tracking, AI building
Data harvesting.
algorithm. Yeah, data harvesting device. Of course.
Yep.
So, like, dude, they got profiles on all of us if they wanted
Yeah.
to. It would not surprise me in the least, with predictive measures, pre-crime-esque, Minority Report style, plans.
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
place. So,
I was recently talking to a friend of mine. We were on our phones and I was playing a little word game, like a little Scrabble game or something.
mhm.
And I was like, hey, I'm like, you ever notice now that every single ad, no matter what app you're using, every single ad is that stupid king getting drowned under the blocks,
Oh,
that
yeah.
game?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I said,
It's called
And now
Royal
we-
Match. I play it all the time, by the way.
Royal Match. And then you got all these celebrities like,
Uh-huh.
I got nothing better to do. I play, and I'm just like,
Raid
why?
Shadow Legends. Raid
Oh, what?
Shadow Legends.
Why
Also buy
are
this
they-
underwear.
Why are they so desperate for us to all play this one stupid game? I'm like, what is in that app, man?
Yeah, there probably is. Yeah, there probably is something to it. And it's really funny about, like, they show that part of when they're advertising that game to you, they show that part of the game, but that part of the game is like 1/10 of the actual game. Like, most of the game is just like the little square, diamonds, like you just matching up the little blocks.
They're
thing.
just it's just the
Yeah.
cutscenes.
Mhm.
yeah, they're
They're
showing you
just selling the cutscenes.
Yeah, yeah.
They do that with video games.
Man,
Mm-hmm.
I've always
man.
done that.
I don't know. Well, and after everything that's come out about like the royal bloodlines, I'm like, I'm not saving this guy. Let him drown.
That's a good point. Yeah. I think about that. I was explaining to a friend, to my buddy Will, the other day about, like, J.J. Abrams and like how, he's such a mixed bag of movies. And I'm like, dude, but, like, honestly, you want to see something really funny? Go watch the TV show Lost. Like, much like, you don't mind the royal king dying, because of what you know about royal bloodlines. It's like, dude, that writing is so bad. I actually rooted for the bad guys in Lost. The good guys, the
He's on Team
heroes.
Smoke Monster.
I am
I'm
totally
right.
on Team Smoke Monster.
Yeah.
Ben Linus for life, baby. Like, those main characters are so
I hated that
insufferably
show, man.
millennial. Like, so yeah, I know exactly
I
how
hated
that
that
feels when
show.
you watch something. You're like, I know I should be rooting for this guy, but, like, I don't think so.
I don't like him. I don't like him.
I don't like him. Yeah, making Gary proud.
Hey guys,
Yeah.
if you're enjoying this conversation, you like this interview, and you want to hear some more of it, including some down and dirty stuff we're not allowed to say here on YouTube, head on over to patreon.com/the Goslings, sign up for one of our tiers, and enjoy some exclusive content
That's right. And remember, keep it cool. And these are interviews.
that strike down the darkness.
That's right, baby. A vertical punch.